This is day 143 of the Arukh HaShulchan OC. And if you would like to sponsor an upcoming shir or more of the Arukh HaShulchan OC, it would be very, very much appreciated. Thank you. Today we are learning from, Siman Kuf Beis, Sif Yud Beis to Siman Kuf Dalet Sif Gimel. Kuf Beis, Yud Beis. V'da, you should know. Still talking about walking Lifnei HaMispalel. V'da shekosov Shem Azor b'Parshas Chayesod Afil Avor also b'Chol Tzdadim. That even to pass by is forbidden on all sides of Mispal. V'zel Shon Azor, that's this language of the Zohar. Man the Man Tzalika also Meba Arba Amos Somachlo. Somebody's diving is forbidden to pass in 4 Amos. Adjacent to him, Bukmul Lahani Arba Amos Chos Star Bar Kamei. And they said this for almost on all sides except before, in front of him, where presumably it's Mlo Einov, Ad Kalashono. Mizeh Kosfu. From this they wrote, the Magen Avraham, El Yerabah, the Azor Osem Chol Tzad, that the Zohar asks on all sides. V'kosher Beinei Lomar, Shazor Yachlok al Gemara, b'makom shem machlokas b'Gemara. It's able to say that the Zohar is going to argue on the Gemara when there's no machlokas in the Gemara itself. Going further, Lama Lo Lomar, Bar L'kamei, why say besides in front of him? The rain Perusho, Levad, L'kamei Od, Asur Michal Tzadim. According to what they're said, the way the Arukh HaShulchan understands what they're saying, that it means besides in front of him, it's also usher from all sides. Although I think the Ma'av shot from just a moment ago is just as good, if not better. That on all sides it's usher. The Amos in front of him it's usher. Kimlo Einov. The Zohar perhaps is machmer that in that way. Anyway, v'dochaku, this is the doichak. V'okashli king am machra b'usher. If according to the Zohar Kodesh, it's also behind him. It's usher. B'zep shita. Thanks for a cloud. The ha. I feel leishem mutter. It's hard to say this because even to sit behind is permissible. To bring saying much because havnu. Anytime in the Zohar it says v'ukmua, that language like we have here. We found this elsewhere, which we don't evidently find this elsewhere. The Zohar also allows on the side. So zermar v'ukmua. This is like the Chachmei Shas say. V'achei Berusha, this is what it means. V'ukmua lahani arba amos. Klamar du ukmei isu zeh arba amos. We have sustained this isu for amos. The chol star mutar. It's permitted on every side. Bar kamei asur, except in front that it's asur. Lishna clearly derech Yerushalmi, and it's an abbreviated language like the Yerushalmi sometimes has. Mishnah Berurah says that the Zohar Chayesor asurs even on the sides for 4 amos. Mishnah taking the Zohar keep shuto. I would like to point out many years ago I saw in my Mashgiach from Shalvim Sefer the Beis Yechezkel by Rabbi Tzuriel Chelak Aleph, Rabbi Tzuriel Shlita, that he brings down the Shas on the Sefer Tzeidah Derech, who says the 4 amos are actually 1 amma in each direction. In other words, 4 amos are 4 amos, but 1 amma in each direction. There adds up to 4 amos, not 4 amos in all directions, and not even 4 amos in front. So it could be that the Zohar Kodesh means that within the 4 amos of the Mispala, 1 amma on each side, it's asur, but past that amma on each side, even in the back, and certainly in the back, it'll be mutter. So it could be that that's the shot in the Zohar. The Ma'atzali also remember arba musamachlo. I mean, within his amma all around. But it's also dachuk. Anyway, but it's good to know this kula about b'shas adchak that say the derech. You can imishlim to us v'yadam acher mispal acharav. If a person finishes davening, there's something else davening behind him. Also, the Psalm shows he can't walk the 3 steps. Ad shimor misha acharav is filos until the person behind him finishes davening. Shim yifsoah, because if you'll take those steps, harei you call it kegem mispal. It's like you're passing in front of a person who's davening. So the dakik bezeni. After you think about this, afilim achron yischil ispal acharav. Even the person behind him started davening after he got there. Since he started, it's not you. What are you going to do? If the person behind him finished Manesre, but he's saying extra stuff in Lokai Netzor at the end, he still have the front up. There's no prohibition to pass in front of him. And that we're not concerned with his getting confused. The problem is that I don't know how you can tell he's saying Tachnunim. Mishnah Berurah writes that even if it's, and Mishnah Berurah is machmir, says even if it's oimed tachnunim, it's also to pass in front of him. Refer back to Arukh HaShulchan Bifrat in tzorich lekach, especially if you have to, I guess if you have to go. I guess if you have need to do so, could go and leave so such as take those steps. But really, it seems to be also that Rav should seem to feel of a shots mantilo kanahuk. If the rabbi's finished davening and the shir tzibur is waiting for him as is customary, he can step backwards even though there's somebody davening behind him. Not to keep the tzibur waiting. Those want to say the keva shatam when they bilbo at tefillah mispala. It's because the confusion created from the mispala. If he has towels over his face, you can pass in front of him because then you're not going to confuse him. Hira Shulchan says not all clear. Yeshiv name mispala davar shagavah asar tfachim rachov arba. Have a hefsek, which is a fascinating idea because it's totally technical. Because if it's only 10 tefachim high, you can still see you. But nevertheless, technically, it's a mechitza, and therefore you can pass in front of him. The Shur writes the Chayronim writes that Mispal is standing on one side, again, a side, which is 10 tefachim high, 4 tefachim wide. You're allowed to sit on the other side of that barrier, but to walk. On the other side, it's possible that if it's not high enough that the other person can't see him, it's usher. And if he's halachas katana, and so to prima gadi. So according to Mishnah Berurah is somewhat more of a non-technical distinction, which is that you're allowed to sit on the other side of the barrier, but not to walk as long as the mispal can see you. So we have a few coolest in these halachas bisman hazeh. It's Eliezer has a tshuva in which he says mimanav shach either somebody's looking to a sitter or he has his eyes closed. Then you can walk upon him because he won't get disturbed. And I'm saying this true from memory, so I have to look it up to make sure that he says it. But this is something my recollection. Also, Shlomo Zalman has said again, there's some recollection that if the person stands in a place where he should not be standing. And that means he's standing in an aisle, or he's standing, let's say, the chasna, a place I have to get by to wash. So then you're allowed to go in front of him. It's only a place where that person has the right, so to speak, to daven, and is not, so to speak, a bor b'shus harabim. Okay, Kuf Gimel, Mishis Damilo Ruach Milamato Itush Betfila. Okay, somebody has to pass gas in the middle of davening. Isa Waraya Aleph, Isa Waraya Betfila, you're standing to davening Satish. And you pass gas. Shotzi ruach milamata. You pass gas on the bottom. You interrupt until the odor dissipates. You go continue davening. Where to go back to when you continue davening? If you not wait without tarry a sufficient time to finish from beginning to end, go back to the place you interrupted. If you interrupted, if you tarried enough to finish the entire thing, you always go back to beginning. So the Simon Samachel is when Simon Samachel and Shom. There's the Rosh Vatur Shalach im Lo Kilo Reach Akadei Shir Zeh. According to the Tais and the Rosh Vatur and Shalach, the odor did not pass then until then. Till the Shir, you go back to the beginning. If the odor passed before that, the Be'emezel Shir Sharech Yishekol Kach. Because it's really not, this kind of odor does not last that long. But he somehow waited nevertheless. I guess he was not 100% sure until the amount of time it takes to finish it all. But since he could have started earlier, let's go back to being like we wrote. Anytime you're compelled to wait, because you go back to the beginning. If you did it out of your own volition, desire, go back to the place where you stopped. Let's say you felt you had to pass gas. You have to compel yourself not to do so out of heart feeling until after you finish Marese. There's no issue of waiting to go to the bathroom. It's only if you're waiting to defecate. Now where you are trying to hold in passing gas. Even if there is Baal Tashaksu to some extent, and it's a Rabban, it's only a rabbinic prohibition. For low goes to they're not making a decree in this manner. The Ikar Hefsek feels also when there's interruption davening and the degradation thereof. Something when you're putting on tefillin, you can saw a rabble of tefillin. It's a big prohibition to pass gas in tefillin. You should hold yourself in. So that's when you can hold it in and wait. If you can't wait to pass gas, you go 4 amos away from your standing, and you emit the wind. That's specifically backwards. The this himself with the Shekhinah which is in front of him. The feel it's starting to go sideways near Shasser. Seems to be prohibited. It doesn't seem so obvious that you're distancing yourself. And it's obvious if he's in the middle of chakras, so he has to remove his tefillin. I'm sorry. You have to take your tefillin off beforehand, full stop. After you pass the gas, stand where you are. And wait till the odor passes. Bomari says, Master of the universe, you made us with cavities, with holes. Cavities. It's well known before you. Our degradation, our embarrassment. Degradation, embarrassment in our lives. Worms and maggots in our death. The Chazim come go back to this place. Go back to the place where you interrupted. If you will tarry long enough to finish all of it, that's already been explained. The Chazim go back to this place where you were. But don't finish the place where you passed the gas. Because the Makom of the Shekhinah, you're already determined 4 amos away. And it seems to me, says Arukh HaShulchan, if you remove your tefillin in order to pass gas, you can wear both tefillin, finish out without tefillin. But don't interrupt no Shemona Esrei in order to put them back on. In brackets, that what says when urine spills on your knees. There you can consider to be somewhat of a mazid. Because you didn't check yourself before davening. Opposed to passing gas, honestly, you're much more of compelled. And it's also possible on the other hand, says that this is more degrading because of the bad odor than the urine. And note that. Okay, Mr. Bura says that if you can't take off your tefillin, at least you should move them out of their sides so they're not on the proper places. It's because you're not allowed to pass gas with tefillin, and that way they're not in the right place. Mr. Bura also writes, Chai Adam agrees that you have to go back to your, it says you're supposed to go back to your original place before you say the Ribbon Elohim. Mr. Bura also, I've never said Ribbon Elohim in my life. It's not in the Sidurim, so I don't really have to memorize it. At least I don't never seen this there. I think that's the Mishnah Bura for this sift. There's maybe one more. Yeah, it goes back to being where a place interrupted. The Mishnah Bura wants to say it's the beginning of the bracha in which you interrupt. You go back to the beginning of that bracha. Dalit. So why don't we say the Ribbon Elohim? So maybe they only require for, well, actually, I think that's not what it means, as we'll see in a moment. It's about moving. Which you don't move today, 4 hours. Perhaps only was required a person who davens at home. But in shul have a bizayon gadol. It's very degrading to actually move in the middle of Shemona Esrei. It's very embarrassing. Therefore you stand in place and you pass the gas. So the rebound you also don't say in our day and age, I guess, because you're supposed to say when you for Amos, like the Mishnah said before you move back to 4 Amos. If you don't move back 4 Amos, there's no rebound alone to say. The Mishnah writes it's good to be mahara, think it in your heart, which again I don't think most of us know it by heart. If a person, I guess, has stomach problems, then it's logical to write it down or memorize it, because it's going to have, unfortunately, if a person has frequent recourse to it, then it probably is a good idea. The Ksheir Marchi Enikar Boshel Chlimaso. He says, why I say the Brimon Olami? Interesting reason, because but if you don't distance yourself, then it's that Busha Chlim you're talking about is not recognizable. So therefore, it's not part. The tefillah is not as apropos. Mamtila Shichle Reach, wait until the odor passes. Chenogi, that's the minute. Nearly the tefillah Chayav Chalton, even though it's embarrassing, you have to remove your tefillah. Again, the Shabbat said at least push them to the side. We cannot permit passing gas in tefillin. Chazal say somebody who passes gas during tefillin during davening. Milamata from below Simon Ralo. It's a bad sign. Milamalish koy nisin when a person sneezes. Simon Yofelo. It's a good sign for him. The Hashem shows lo nachas ruach milamata. Just like they make a nachas ruach here in this world. Chachos lo nachas ruach they make a nachas ruach for him in the world above. It's a pleasure for a person to sneeze. Okay, in passing gas from below, it doesn't make a difference whether it makes a sound or doesn't make a sound. Although Bishop says some people say it does make a difference, also he seems to say in the final analysis it does not. Why is it a bad sign from below? And they should marchikim also because they're distancing him from his davening. They have to go down Amos away. Could be that's another reason they don't want to go down Amos away, so we won't be seen, won't feel a distance from our tefillah. Our mala ain't got hefsek, but from on top there's no hefsek. Again, there's a pleasure, so it's okay. Vayan le'el simin pei. Kuf dalach also hefsek with tefillah now interrupt in the middle of davening. Aleph, I forgot the answer Kriya Shema Mutar Fsikim Nea Yura B'Kovet, even though in the middle of Kriya Shema you can interrupt because of Yura and Kovet, K'mosh Tzab Saravav, nevertheless, come to Tefillah Shema Esrei, ain't okay. Shema it's not like that. The King of the Avi comes to the Melech, since you're you're standing in front of the king, also Lafsi, they have said Mama now have to interrupt because of a loss of money, because Kriya Nea Yura B'Kovet, and certainly not for fear or for honor. Shem Lifnei Melech, Boss of Adon, Yasi Yem Tzadibura, Imam Melech, because sometimes he's saying for human king, if he interrupts in the middle of his talk with the king, he's Chayav Rosh HaMachos. He's liable for his head to the king. When he stands in front of Hashem. You don't have to be mafsik in a place where there's a potential for danger to life. There's nothing who stands in front of Pikuach Nefesh. V'din atfila. Kidin Plasuk Shema Yisrael, she's Barasham Shos Lafsik, Amogam Chashas, Akaras Nefashos, you should not interrupt unless there's a potential of life danger. Bezel Beis, Bezel Shishon Chacham Mishnah, Tafil Melch Shlo B'Shlomo Yelo Yafsik. As we learned in Mishnah that a person inquires as a king, inquires as to your health, you can't interrupt. Afil Nachash Korach Akav Yelo Yafsik, and the snake is wrapped on your leg, you should not interrupt. When it says Loshon Malchis, it's only for Jewish kings. But for non-Jewish kings, posek, you interrupt Shemar again because he might kill you otherwise. And so too somebody who's a robber, bandit. Shabola Vemsat comes to you in the middle of davening. Posek becomes you interrupt for this reason. You have to interrupt. If you'll see, like it says, Shmartam Nafshosechem. Watch your souls. When we find somebody who's a chassid, did not stop in the middle, even though the governor was there, but potentially would kill him. That's because he was confident that the governor would accept his justification. And would not kill him. Like indeed it was. Rabbi Yochanan was a volunteer, they wanted to interrupt. They wanted to hurt him. They did not hurt him. Yesh Istapek, it's unclear. El Chashash Yisurin. They're not going to kill you, but they're going to torture you. Ainu Shiakel, so he's going to be beaten. Imutul Hafsik, can you interrupt? B'tzorich Iyun. Hashem shall bring us to such case, to that test. Basically, you must interrupt, like we wrote. Nevertheless, if it's possible to dive in quickly. The sofa, Kodem, Sheyagia Olav. You should say the beginning of the bracha and the end of the bracha before this person comes to you, before the situation which is imminent comes to pass. And make every bracha shorter. If you can go off the road, go off the road. Not interrupt with speech. Walking is not considered the same interruption like speaking. If it's not possible to do any of these things, there's a potential danger. You should interrupt actually by speaking. Mishabura says it's better to abbreviate your davening than to leave the way. Regarding is not sure about that. He says that Alicha Tzorach Tefillah perhaps not a hefsek, and since Arukh HaShulchan says also Alicha superior, I think we will go with that approach.